Welcome to Pep Talk, Peptides Unpacked. We know peptides are powerful, but they're still wildly misunderstood.
But as always, we're here to change that one conversation at a time.
I'm Dr. Kylie Burton,
And I'm Jessica Bricky.
and this is Pep Talk, Peptides Unpacked. Science made simple, results made real. Today we're diving into a peptide that hasn't been specifically talked about. It's not widely available until now, and one where both of us have been waiting to talk and waiting to shout from the rooftops of this powerful peptide. It's known as thymosin alpha 1 or TA1.
Man, if you have lived with an autoimmune condition, which there are so many people that are, or you've worked
82
with people,
million plus and counting.
yeah, I
The
think
U.S.
we have a stat that we're going to give people in a second. Even as a practitioner, you're working with a lot of people that are dealing with autoimmunity, chronic illness, complex inflammatory cases. You know that these things are really unpredictable, they're overwhelming. And TA1 is really interesting because it's just not about boosting that immune system, right? That's what we've learned.
Yeah, it's about modulating it. It's about re-educating the immune system, helping it to communicate more effectively instead of overreacting or underreacting.
That distinction really matters more than most people even realize.
Here's a fun fact before we get going. There are over 100 autoimmune diseases, and together they affect more than 50 million Americans and many more because many are not even diagnosed. That's a massive number of people whose immune systems aren't misbehaving, they're miscommunicating.
Right. It's exactly why this peptide just stopped me dead in my tracks when we started learning about it. And I could really dive into the information and understand what this thing is going to do for people.
Yeah, so let's jump in. But before we get any further, just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. Nothing we share is intended to diagnose, treat, or replace medical care. Always work with your licensed medical provider when considering any peptide or protocol. And we better be careful because we'll say it in very careful ways because we have to, but we know the power that this thing has.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, we want to share a little bit of backstory about this peptide. We were actually recording a previous episode with Dr. Jared Ward. It was a great conversation, but we couldn't get the audio to work out, so we weren't able to release this. That episode is the reason this peptide has been living in our heads ever since.
Yep. That conversation in the middle of it, if you remember, Kylie, I had this really aha moment where we're talking about immune regulation and not the stimulation of the immune system, but it just suddenly clicked to me how this could potentially help people with Lyme. Not as a cure for Lyme necessarily, but as a way to help that immune system relearn when it's under such major stress for a really long time.
Yeah, we're not just going to talk about Lyme either. When I was listening to Jared and talking about the power of TA1 and that other people are already seeing, now it's just become more available and more education on it. I immediately thought labs and thought that 1-to-1 ratio with autoimmune diseases, all of the CBC differential portion with the infections. And sure enough, this one peptide can do such powerful work. I would say more than the 6-month supplement treatment plan that we've been using up to this point.
I
This is
know.
going to replace it. It's
It's
insane.
absolutely insane, and which is why you and I are going to do a separate episode solely on the labs and how we can take a look at that and help people break that down. Today, we're just going to really focus on, I think, what TA1 is,
Yes. And when we want to use it.
when we want to use it. So to understand, I want people to know why this matters so much to me. So and why this clicked, where I come from, where I live, I'm in the Hudson Valley in New
Let's
York.
say both. Where both of us come from, ticks are normal things.
Huge. I'm near Lyme, Connecticut, right? Lyme, Connecticut. It's just a big deal. And it's more rampant all over the country than it ever really was. It used to be in this like little tiny pocket. Now it is more widely seen, unfortunately.
We
But
have, at my
here,
house, we have the mosquitoes. We're right by the Great Salt Lake. And so about 6 months out of the year, We're spraying mosquitoes, we're spraying yourself. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
Mosquitoes,
and
ticks.
what I think people don't know, and this was something that I learned in my Lyme journey with my son, is that anything that can really bite and break into the
Mhm.
blood can transfer disease, right? So
Yep.
we associate Lyme just with ticks, but really it can, while it's rare, it still can come from other ways to transfer things. So mosquitoes are still a really big deal. But here, Lyme is like one of those things where you don't think, if I get exposed. You live a lifestyle now where you are doing everything in your power to try to mitigate the exposure, but likely most people here in this area are going to get exposed to it. I can't go out in my backyard in the summertime, in my own yard, and not worry about ticks. I
Oh
love
yeah.
to be out there barefoot running around. And when the kids were little, that was a big deal because now what am I going to do to prevent? How do you prevent ticks? So when Dr. Jared was talking about this, that's immediately where I went because I've dealt with Lyme myself. I've also dealt with mold exposure. I have multiple autoimmune conditions. I've had a son who contracted Lyme as an infant as a camping trip. It changed his whole life. So it really changes how I look at immune health. And it's not theory for me. This is so deeply personal that we have something that can help people support the immune system do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Not just Lyme. We're talking autoimmune diseases. We're talking infections. We're talking long COVID or anything that the immune system, when you talk to moms, you're like, gosh, my son, anything, any type of germ that gets into the school, my son just gets sick. Or I've had a recent client where her son's fighting long COVID, got it in 2020, and just knocks him dead. He's
Yeah.
20 years old. He's been on a list of supplements. He's tried all the other regimens. I'm like, look, all those lists of supplements, you can now replace them with a one peptide called TA1.
Yeah, I know. And thank God we are one of the first to be able to point people in the direction of where they can get it. I'm so grateful for that. So why don't we just get into what is TA1? Kylie mentioned it earlier. TA1 stands for thymosin alpha 1. So it's a peptide that our body naturally makes in the thymus gland, which sits in the upper chest. And really, the thymus is the training ground for the immune system. It's what tells those T cells what to do. When we think of the immune system, I think this might even be new for people. People don't realize that the immune system really largely depends on the health of our gut, right? And I think that there's more conversation around a healthy gut will help with an immune system that is strong and help you fight infection and so on and so forth. And all of that is true. However, even if we have a healthy gut and we're producing those immune cells that we need, it doesn't mean that the body knows now what to do with them.
Yeah.
So,
The immune system, we often think immune gut, but there's more to it than that. And you and I have both walked down the microbiome route many times,
mhm,
not just in our clinical experience, but with our clients as well. And I've even trained many physicians on this stuff. But there's a new way to do it. And
mhm.
it's so exciting that you can, rather than taking the 6 months of supplements, you can take one peptide. And I'm going to keep saying that because it's that powerful.
It
And
is that powerful.
I hear so many times like people are just like, I'm tired of taking all these things and I'm still wondering if I'm feeling better.
Yeah, yeah.
Where this
Well,
stuff, you'll notice.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the thymus gland, like I mentioned, it's teaching those immune cells how to behave, right? And this is where the T cells are trained to recognize what's the real threat. What should the response be? What should we be doing? But T cells are a type of white blood cell. And I know when I say white blood cell, Kylie's like, ooh, my
Labs,
favorite.
5 to 8.
Talking labs. But they're the decision makers of the immune system. So if your immune system were a security team, think of them as a security team, then our antibodies are the weapons. Okay. And the inflammation in our body is the alarm system. And then the T cells are going to be like that management who decides, they're going to decide who is our threat, who isn't our threat, how aggressive should that response be.
Yeah. I'm just reading through our notes here. We've got T cells are a type of white blood cell, and we're reiterating what you had just said. If your immune system were a security team, antibodies are the weapons, inflammation is the alarm, and T cells decide who's a threat, who isn't, and how aggressive the response should be. Just again, reiterating, because when we get into the science, it's wait a second, keep these things straight. Let's hear it a couple times. So, anyways, when the decision-making process breaks down, autoimmunity shows up.
It does. Yeah. Autoimmune conditions, they're not caused by a weak immune system. They can be a weakened immune system can
Let's,
certainly.
what if we were to say the immune system or the autoimmunity is caused by a confused
I think that's a
immune
much,
system?
much better way to put that. I think
I
it is a
agree.
confused immune system, right? It's a loss like immune tolerance. It's not recognizing what belongs in the body anymore. So T cells, they're misidentifying our own tissue as a threat, and inflammation becomes more chronic. We have it all the time. And the immune response, it's not shutting off the way that it should be. And that's why boosting the immune system often makes immune response worse. That's an autoimmune symptom could be amplified because we've done something to make that stronger, faster, louder. So TA1 is going to support immune communication at the level of the T cell. So it's going to reinforce proper signaling and regulation. It's not going to suppress that immune system. It's not going to overstimulate that immune system, which is what's happening in the case of autoimmune conditions. So in simple terms, TA1 is helping the immune system just calm down, but not shut off, which means there's fewer false alarms, there's less chronic inflammation, better resilience, and really just a body that's not constantly living in that fight or flight because people don't realize that under stress, under chronic conditions, such as whether it's mold, Lyme, or autoimmune, that's a major stress response. The body doesn't know the difference between being chased by a bear or having some sort of chronic health condition. So we're constantly in that fight or flight mode.
And I want to just bring up really quick how when we reference autoimmunity, we as practitioners we get asked this all the time. Do you treat MS? Do you treat
Mm.
Parkinson's? Do you treat ulcerative colitis? Do you treat endometriosis? Like we could put a label onto it, but they all fall underneath the same category of autoimmune. And when you're underneath the same category, the mechanisms are the same. It's just a matter of where did your immune system attack?
Right.
Hashimoto's, your immune system attacks your thyroid. MS, your immune system attacks your nervous system. Ulcerative colitis, your immune system attacks your intestines. So it's just a matter of where is the attack occurring, which is why they can all fit underneath the same umbrella and receive benefit from the same treatment plan.
Exactly why this is such an exciting peptide because we can do that. And I think you may say this to the practitioners that you teach, me having been one of your students at one point, but I say this to people that come into my office. I don't care what the name of your autoimmune condition is.
I don't
If
care what the
you feel
name of your condition is, period.
if you feel that you need to have a name for your symptoms, by all means get a diagnosis. I'm not telling you not to do that. But understand that for me, helping you get set up and how to help your body be well from that, it doesn't matter. Those diagnosis names are just names for the symptoms that you're having. It doesn't matter. And again, which is why this is such an exciting peptide because it's now telling the body and the immune system how to respond or not over respond. It just keeps it functioning as it should. And it can get ticked off for a number of reasons, but one of them can even be a good thing. Like athletes with a high stress body, which is your wheelhouse. Like you deal with having been an athlete, having family that's an athlete. Like I feel like athletes are your wheelhouse a little bit.
No, one of the biggest issues athletes face is, and I think about the Taylor Swift episode documentation, she's always, my body has to be at the top of its game. I cannot get sick. Athletes are no different. We don't have space to get sick, yet we put so much stress on ourselves. Heck, entrepreneurs, business owners. mothers. Like,
Yeah.
if my kids get sick, it's like, crap, there goes my day plans.
Best
So
laid
really,
plans.
this
There they
applies to
go.
everybody with high stress. We live in 2026. You cannot pull up the internet without getting more stress put on you. And it just keeps escalating. So do your body a favor and order some TA1. It's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, but specifically, Kylie, when we talk about athletes, I wrote some notes down here because I know this is like your with your husband, he's always been a bodybuilder too, right? So you have your husband, yourself as a former athlete, your brother who was a runner. Your brother was a runner, I believe. So
Ramon,
this has
right?
been like people that you've been around. So you see what happens to the body, what literally is happening to the body and how that is driving or suppressing inflammation. Like
Right.
what's happening? Like what happens over time with that?
Over time, your body's going to break down. Pretty much put simply. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of how and when.
Yeah. But you
And
think
if
of
you want to,
yourself as an athlete, you think, oh, I'm doing all these great things for my body. I
yeah,
think that's where
and
I'm going with that, right? Like you think
so
of an
athletes
athlete as
think,
somebody that's living so well and exercising so hard, it's hard to imagine that would be a trigger.
right, and they all think about rebuilding muscle.
Mm,
I went to a funeral this past weekend,
mm,
and it was a funeral of somebody who owned a gym. So, of course, everybody who was attending the funeral are gym rats
right.
and major big bodybuilders. In fact, one of the guys I was sitting next to, he likes to cycle cross country. He gets sponsored to do it. He's had, I kid you not, 38 heart surgeries.
Holy cow.
When I said, and I was taking all the things he's describing to me, his diet, and I'm like, do you know what a peptide is? He goes, I've never heard of that. GLP-1, Ozempic. Have you heard of Ozempic? He's, oh yeah, I've heard of Ozempic. I said, that's a peptide. But let me talk to you about peptides for you. Now, I don't want to get into that with this TA1 conversation, but a lot of people don't understand that as they're focusing on taking their creatine and their glutamine and all these amino acids, which a peptide is just multiple amino acids. Oh,
Right.
imagine that. They're taking all this to rebuild their muscle and replenish their electrolytes and these things, but where what they really need to be doing is helping their body handle the stress that they're putting it under.
Yeah. So not,
TA1's great.
yeah, so not just for athletes, right? So TA1 is really great for people that are struggling in many ways, like we've mentioned multiple times now, autoimmune conditions, chronic Lyme, mold exposure, which can be like such a messy thing to clean up.
I
Oh,
would say every single one of us, like you said, with infections, with the tick,
yeah,
we've all been exposed to mold.
yeah, 100%. But for some
Period.
reason, I feel like in the last maybe decade, maybe even 2 decades, people don't handle it. Our body, we're constantly exposed to it, but we used to handle it better than we do now. And the body just does not bounce back from mold exposure or deal with that toxic load. And that's a whole nother episode that we can talk about separately as to why the things that we're doing to our body, but stress being at the top of that list probably, and then diet and lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. But in this particular case, TA1 is going to help those people with autoimmune conditions and the chronic Lyme and the mold exposure, post-infectious illnesses, right? Athletes, like we just mentioned, high performers under heavy stress loads, they can benefit. But also something else that people don't even think about, healthy individuals could use TA1 and they could use it as a twice a year, let's just make sure the body has what it needs when we're going into a high stress season, like just before the holidays. Like, how stressed out is everybody from Thanksgiving to Christmas to get all the things done that need to be done, and all the travel and all the shopping and all the planning? It's just a high stress, high exposure season where a lot of people right now I'm hearing, as a matter of fact, while we were just sitting here, I just got a text from somebody who they just tested positive for the flu. They're supposed to come in for a treatment tomorrow and they can't because they all just tested positive for the flu. So the immune system is not doing what it should be. So even a healthy individual, somebody that I don't have autoimmune, I don't have a chronic condition, I'm not one of those people that gets repeatedly sick. Like We're talking about people with low immune function too. Somebody that's like always got a cold, always got strep throat, always got bronchitis, whatever. The healthy individuals can use it going into these high stress seasons or when they're under some sort of travel, intense training, and just use it for a month to get those T cells, making sure that they're staying on track and doing what they're supposed to do. So it's really for everybody. I just think of this as one of the pieces for foundational support. There's not anybody that couldn't use Thymosin alpha 1. It's one of the reasons why we love it so much because there's nobody that is excluded.
Yeah. I think a simple way to sum it up would be if you've heard me talk before, I'm always preaching vitamin D. Now TA1 is going to be right there next to vitamin D, if not a step ahead. Because it's
I
that
agree.
powerful for our immune system. And when our immune system's working great and communicating effectively, not only are you going to keep at your level of health, but you're going to upgrade that level of health. And if you're working on overcoming symptoms of disease or symptoms of whatever you're fighting, it's just going to help it too, especially in the autoimmune and long chronic illness space.
Yeah, I when I think about my love and passion for peptides that have come about here, I have right now I have a top 3. So GLP-1s, those are the peptides that everybody's talking about right now. And as you just mentioned, telling that story, people don't even really understand peptide therapy. They're not understanding that terminology. So you just say, okay, you've heard of peptides when you were talking about Ozempic, Wegovy, Manjaro, like those big GLP names. GLP-1 isn't just for weight loss, which is what most people are associating it with. We do know, obviously, it's big for helping to balance blood sugar, but this is a big one for inflammation. It's for metabolic health, neuroinflammation. Like, how many people are walking around right now like they can't remember their own name half the time? What did I come into this room for? Or where was I in this sentence? I can't recall. Neuroinflammation is a really big deal. So, GLP-1s, I love them for so many things beyond weight loss and blood sugar balancing. And blood sugar balancing is like a driver for so many problems like inflammation, but there's a lot that we can do with it. So when I think about foundation peptide support, GLP-1's top of the list.
And I hope
BP,
that with this podcast, we've been able to shine the light on the other aspects of GLP-1s that go
yeah,
so far behind beyond metabolism and weight loss.
yeah,
And if you want to know what I'm talking about, go listen to Jimmy's story. At the dinner table at the funeral, I literally told everybody, like, you need to start with this one episode because he talks about shoulder injury. He was a CrossFitter like crazy Marine. If you beat your body up, by golly, give it what it needs to heal.
yeah, for sure. Which then leads me to my second favorite,
Stop right there.
BPC. So BPC 157 is a really big piece for inflammation, soft tissue repair, and also the gut lining. So when we talk about things about our immune health, the gut lining is important because we have to have a good intestinal tract in order to have good immune cells manufactured. Also, because we also need to absorb nutrients properly. So a lot of people hear about leaky gut, they hear about all these problems in the gut and whatever, and those are all true. BPC 157 is a really strong peptide to help strengthen the integrity of our gut lining. So it's good
Yeah.
for recovery.
And when you think about autoimmune disease, which we're discussing with TA1, this is a great combination.
Huge
TA1 and
combination.
BPC 157. If you're like, I don't know where to start with these two.
Yeah.
And if unless you're GLP-1 going down that route, that would be great if you want to go down that route. But my husband and I just ordered each our own BPC 157. I got a family member who just ordered it because she's got major digestive issues and nothing has been resolved.
Yep.
Another one, pain. When I
Yep.
think gut problems, pain, and I think injuries. So like
Yeah.
tissue recovery from the shoulder surgeries, from knee joints. Like I've had a nagging knee injury for, I don't know, since 2012 now, since I
Mhm.
ran Ragnar. I can't run for longer than 15 minutes. Otherwise my knee locks up. So we're going to put BPC 157 to the test
And see what
and
happens. Yeah.
see what happens.
For me, I've used it for a couple injuries that wouldn't heal myself, and it has just been a game changer. So my favorite stack, if you're stacking, if you can do it all, these are the ones. TA1, BPC 157, that's combined with TB 500 usually, and then the GLPs. Those are my favorite stacks. But if we are
Yeah.
talking about people that are struggling with chronic conditions, pain, things that won't heal, whether it is in soft tissue and or it's an immune issue, TA1 and BPC 157. It's just
Yeah, for
really
sure.
super smart foundational support for everyone.
Yeah, and a little
And
bit of a heads up on the cost here too. Sorry, I was talking to one of the guys at this funeral, and he had texted me maybe a month or two ago. He was like, "Wait a second, you offer peptides now? I've been taking these for 2 years. I swear by them." So he's telling me about his BPC 157. You're gonna blow your mind to this.
okay.
He was paying $800 per month
Whoa.
for BPC 157 alone.
Whoa.
All of his peptides he was taking, $3,600.
Stop it right now.
No. And so he's
I'm
like, when you
I'm
sent me over
literally
the link,
flabbergasted.
I was like, have I just been, have I been dealing with price gauging here? Like, yeah, pretty much. They've been,
Yeah,
and
he definitely has. Holy cow.
I think that's where I said something about it online too. And the people in the comments were like, why would I go somewhere else when I'm in control of the price tag? These companies who have been price gauging are no longer in control of the price tag because of the availability of them now. So just to throw that out there, he was paying $3,600 a month.
I'm sitting here in absolute I'm bewildered by that number. First of all, 3,600, and that's like I'm assuming indefinitely depending on what he was doing. It sounds like he's a
Yeah, I mean,
long-term
he's
there are
doing
various peptides.
GLP-1s, tesamorelin, BPC 157. He's an avid lifter. And
Yeah.
he hadn't never heard of TA1 before. And
Oh,
I know
well,
because he's a previous patient of mine. I'm like, no, you gotta, if you're gonna focus on three things for him, it was the bodybuilding thing, the BPC 157. I said, you gotta do TA1. You have to, knowing
yeah.
your autoimmune history. So just to throw that out there for you guys, BPC 157. I've ordered it myself. I ordered it for my husband. His goal is joint pains and some tissue recovery, help with that. And TA1 is what our conversation is today. If you're looking like, where do I even start? BPC 157, TA1, GLP-1.
Yeah, that's it. Just real quick on the usage and the timeline for TA12. So it is obviously very individual dependent. So healthy people, like I mentioned before, might be just twice a year for 1 month. That's it. You don't get, you're the person that doesn't ever get sick twice a year just to support that. And people that never get sick, by the way, I listened to a doctor say this the other day and I thought, you're right. They're that's great. They have a really good, strong immune system that's working as it should. But what happens when that person finally does get sick? They haven't been challenged. Like that immune system hasn't been challenged at all to know what to do. So when they for them to do this, just to make sure that those are called into action, they know what to do. Like they know how to send everybody out to do their job. So the healthy person might be just twice a year for 1 month. The person that has immune stress, so the chronic conditions, but also those people that are repeatedly getting sick, they get over one thing and then a month like later they're like, I'm sick again, or they just never seem to kick that cough. They were sick with whatever crud they had. 6, 8 weeks, 9 weeks later, whatever it is, they're still coughing. They just can't fully get rid of it. Longer standing conditions, you might need it for a little bit longer. What does that look like? Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months. It's going to be appropriate oversight with your provider who's going to help you determine what that looks like for you. But it's been studied for decades, this TA1. The goal is always about regulation of our immune system, but not to become dependent on it. We're just trying to get everybody to have an immune system that does its job properly.
Yeah. Long COVID is a great example of that. People with immune stress. They call it long COVID, but you know, the symptoms. So
Yeah.
that's TA1. It matters because immune regulation matters, especially for autoimmune and chronic inflammatory conditions. If today's conversation helped connect some dots for you, make sure you share this episode and keep learning with us, especially if you know somebody who has autoimmune conditions or is still fighting that C word that they once received a diagnosis for. You can find me at drkylieburton.com/peptides and my other podcast at Unshakable Brain.
You can find me on Instagram at jessb_LMT_NC, or you can find me at b2bwithjess.com/peptides.
And remember, if you were sent here by somebody else, especially they are a health practitioner, reach out to them as they will help you get started on your next step.
We'll see you in the next episode of Pep Talk, Peptides Unpacked.